You guys playing the same song, or are you just like trying to?
No, we'll figure it out. If you're in the band, then you're in the band, Shelby. But otherwise,
I'm in the band.
Then put on your
But
instrument.
you
Let's
can't
go.
hear anything over you guys.
All right.
This story, like most stories that are worth telling, is as true as it is a lie, and as much of a lie as it is hardened truth. This is the story of a family. It began many, many eons ago, and yet will end here and today. And though that end is also far away. The story begins with a grandfather by the name of Loki. Loki, god of mischief, but also god of knowledge, helpful and hurtful, maligned and yet beneficial. And the story begins of Loki's extramarital affair with Angerboda. Angerboda, who is mother to Great Skull, the wolf on my arm, tattooed and commemorated, who chases the sun and will one day swallow it, bringing half of darkness to Midgard. And his brother, Hati, who chases the moon and will one day swallow it and create the other half of the eternal night that will rule the world in the days that follow Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, and the final battle of order versus chaos, not good versus evil. Different spectrums they are. For among chaos there is good, and among order there is evil. And in some of these beings there is both. The Great Warden and tragic Fenrir, who our tale will focus upon. And so, Angerboda, mother of the great wolves that chase our two lanterns, mother of werewolves and monsters. Analogous in some ways, some might say, to the stolen Lilith, mother of monster of the kneeling class. But Angerboda was there first. Angerboda, terrible and lovely, fair and terrifying. And such was the passion that swelled in Loki's heart, mind, and loins when he came upon Angerboda, that a violent consummation was had between the two beasts, savage mischief and primal unburdened floods. If you'll forgive my crassness, a fucking such as the forests of the Yarnvidir, the Ironwood, home to Angerboda, the werewolves, the great wolves, and the creatures of chaos and dark, had never seen. And Angerboda came to term with a litter as diverse as it was savage and powerful. First born was great Jormungand, king of serpents and dragons, a beast so large it could encircle Midgard itself and still bite its own tail. That's a tale for another day. How Jormungandr, great, terrible, but not the brightest, was tricked into a battle, a forever battle, with his own ass. Can't always be serious. Youngest born of the three was Hela, fair on her right side, but choked, corpse-ish on her left. Upon seeing her left blue, frost-bitten corpse side, the gods were disgusted. For beauty and form often mattered too much to the Aesir. And so they overlooked Hela's ingenuity, her intelligence, and ultimately her fairness. And they hurled her down the depths of Niflheim, where she created a new land for herself, the 9 Hells. The top layers of which are perfectly acceptable. Not great parties like the halls of Thor or Odin's Valhalla or Freya's Great Hall, but a place one can live their afterlife in contentment. But the lower levels are for the cowards, the adulterers, the traitors, the oath breakers. The oath breakers. Perhaps this is why Odin fears his death at the hands of the unmentioned middle child so very dearly. And so, the middle child, Fenrir, was born, and was alarmingly unremarkable. Seemingly just a wolf pup. If any of you have seen a wolf pup first try to howl, let me tell you, it's fucking adorable. The gods were charmed by Fenrir, adorable little wolf cub that he was, and so they said, wow, what harm is Fenrir? Let him wander the woods outside of Asgard. He'll hunt, live, and he'll grow. And grow, Fenrir did. Fenrir grew and grew. By the time he was a child, he was the size of a regular wolf. By the time he was an adolescent, he was the size of a dire wolf. And by the time he was a young adult, he was the size of a horse. And he kept growing. And Odin felt a feeling both alien and yet all too familiar, though he would deny it to his dying day. Odin felt fear. And yet the wolf kept growing. And when Odin became more afraid, so did the Aesir and Vanir themselves share in his fear. They felt the quaking on the inside of their leader, even though he would not show it, they knew it. And so they too began to fear great and noble Fenrir. Among them, the possible former god of the kingdoms, lost time, Tyr, fair Tyr, wise and measured Tyr, was the only one who did not fear great Fenrir. Tyr's affection from Fenrir that all gods shared when he was but a mewling cub remained, no matter how large Fenrir got. Fenrir, more than capable of hunting for himself, never failed to appreciate the sweet meats brought to him from the great halls of Asgard by wise and kind and measured Tyr. And among them, you have Tyr, the child of Loki. Loki, the child of Aesir Laufey, and an unnamed Jotun. Blood brother Loki was to Odin. So within his veins carried both the blood of an Aesir and a Vanir. His mother, Fenrir's mother, Angerboda, one of the greatest Jotuns of all time. Fenrir being one of 3 to hold both Aesir and Jotun blood, as well as the powered blood of Odin himself. And Tyr feared him. Just a big dog. And Fenrir enjoyed the sweet meats brought to him by a fearless tear. And in the two, a friendship was forged. And yet Odin's fear grew. So Odin goes to the Norns, weavers of fate, the virgin, the crow, the mother. Weave the fates of men and gods so tightly they may not escape. And yet there are those of us that question the weaves. Are they truly written? Or do we write them once we know them? The strings as they're pulled. So Woden consults the Norns, who tell him Fenrir will fell the first dead man in Ragnarok, twilight of the gods that you so fear, great Woden. One-eyed Woden, god of the hanged tree. You who fear Ragnarok, the final battle above all, must know that Fenrir will kill the first man god to fall in Ragnarok. Odin asks the North who is first to fall to dread Fenrir. Why would Fenrir be the one to call that blow? The Norns say, as of your second question, time will tell. But who dies first in Ragnarok at the jaws of Fenrir, Odin, is none other than you. A chill runs down Odin's spine as he pretends to feel no fear. He fears more fear than he's ever felt in his life. And Odin decrees the dread wolf, not the great wolf, the dread wolf now must be bound. You see, Fenrir is roughly the size of an elephant in these days. And Fenrir, like all gods, Jotuns, has a unique proclivity. Thor calls the storms, Odin is the wisdom, Freya of fertility and war, Troy of the harvest, and Fenrir. Well, if it exists, Fenrir can break it. And that includes God's flesh. And Odin fears more by the day as he learns. And so he decrees Fenrir must be bound. But Fenrir is no fool. And he thinks us a friend. So of his binding, we will pretend to make a contest. Build a chain that can hold the greatest of wolves. And so they build this chain and they bring it to Fenrir. Fenrir goes, hey, why do you want to tie me up? And they go, oh, Fenrir, it's a silly game. You can break anything. Why not break this chain and prove how great you are? And Fenrir goes, ha, I can break anything. Fine, chain me. Let's do this. So they chain. And but a flex of his great shoulders pop. It snaps like a brittle twig. Jordan feels that fear creep deeper down his spine, and he decrees a bigger chain, a second contest for great Fenrir. Fenrir, still believing this is a game, good sport, agrees. I'll break the bigger chain. We're gonna have to make a bigger one than that last one if you want me to break a sweat. And so they do. And so they bind him. And Fenrir flexes his shoulders, and there's a give, but not quite. Shakes. Bam! Links. Clatter everywhere. The second great chain, bigger than the last, broken. Fenrir laughs. He's actually rather much enjoying this game. And so a third chain is formed. A chain so thick, so on it. Fenrir looks at this one and goes, seriously? How many times are we going to do this, friends? If it exists, I can break it. If he's building bigger ones, it's just going to become embarrassing for you. And the gods go, oh, Fenrir, are you sure you're not blustering because you're afraid? And Fenrir goes, oh, wrap me the hell up, fine. And so they do. And Fenrir flexes his shoulders. A bit of a crunch, but the chain holds. And Fenrir shakes. And there's a clattering, but the chain holds. And Fenrir pops forward his shoulders, sucks in his breath, and he huffs. And he puffs. Yes, he was the first back. Whoa. And he exhales. Gah! And the third chain shatters. And out he climbs. And then he looks at the gods and goes, well, we're done, right? Because this is getting old. The gods don't say a word and retreat slowly into the woods. And Fenrir looks at Tyr and goes, brother, what is this? And Tyr goes, don't ask me. Because if they can bind Fenrir under the guise of a friendly competition, Tyr knows he's bargaining in bad faith. He's torn between his loyalty to tribe, of which he swore the tribe he once ruled and kept safe, and his oaths to his friend, a friend who trusts him for the bread they've broken. Odin feels fear sink into his tailbone. And so he goes to the place he hates to go because they're such fickle borrowers, lenders. They're asking always their price higher than what anyone's willing to pay. He goes to the Dark Elves, also known as the Dwarves, and he tells them his need. To this day, we do not know what he agreed to. But we know that many things that were no longer are as a result. The beard of a woman, the breath of a fish, the sound the cat makes when it walks, among other things. For they were woven into a ribbon or a rope. Unclear which, but all we know is a ribbon or rope. Gleipnir was its name, and it was far less impressive to look upon than a big chain. Slighter it was. And so they brought it before Fenrir and said, this is the final leg of the contest, my friend. You've almost won. Just snap this ribbon. And one more time, Fenrir went, seriously? And then he said a very important word. No. And everyone went silent. Fenrir, don't tell me you're afraid of a ribbon. Fenrir said, I fear nothing. But that reeks of magic. And you are all up to something. I'm no fool. This is the contest. You seek to bind me. Why? And they went, Fenrir, it's a game. You're being rather dramatic. You're afraid of the ribbon. We understand. I don't fear a ribbon. I don't fear anything. And I will not be called a coward. But that thing is damned, God said Fenrir. If you can't break it, we'll just let you out. It's a game. Fenrir says, if you bind me at this point, I'm no fool, and I'll never be free again. So one of you, if you mean it, put your hand in my mouth. Because then I'll know that you mean to free me. Because if you don't, and I lose my freedom, well, one of you will lose some god flesh. And I suppose we'll call that even. And so the gods huddled. And now they all felt the fear of Odin felt, because for one of them, this contest, born in bad faith, was going to become very real. And no one would put their hand in Fenrir's mouth. Not one of them, not even fearless Thor of his mother. They all looked at Thor, and Thor said, well, how can I swing my hammer if I have but one hand? How can I recall it if I have but one hand? And the gods said, I suppose it's points and not cowardice. Not the gods, in fact. But Tyr said it wryly, looking upon Asgard's great bloodletting hero with what we will call repressed disdain. And Tyr said, none of you, not a one of you, ha! You cowards. Let it be me. So Tyr stepped forward and said, I will put my hand in your mouth, Fenrir. And for one moment, Fenrir's eyes softened. If his old friend would agree to this, would take this risk, then perhaps it was just all a game, and the gods have a cruel sense of humor, but this has really been done in good faith. So Fenrir agreed. So they wrapped the ribbon tight around him again and again and again. Tyr placed his hand in Fenrir's mouth, and Fenrir gently wrapped his mouth around Tyr's arm. The way a dog does when it's showing you that it cares, not that it wants to hurt you. Firmly, because he was no nonsense. But he knew, he wanted Tyr to know that as long as the deal was kept, that Tyr was safe. And Fenrir pushed his shoulders forward, and he couldn't get out. And he shook, and he couldn't get out. And he tensed every muscle in his body, and he couldn't get out, because you see, the things that made the ribbon had been pulled from reality, and now no longer existed to make the ribbon. And so Fenrir, who could break anything that existed, could not break the ribbon of things that no longer existed. And then there was a moment that Fenrir's big watery dog eyes met Tyr's. And he saw a look in Tyr's eyes he had never seen before. A look of remorse, of regret, and of shame. The look a man can only have when they betray something as pure as their own dog. And in that moment, Fenrir knew that his good friend Tyr had been caught between duty to tribe and duty to one. And Fenrir understood, but Fenrir had made a representation. And so he clenched his jaw, and Tyr groaned, and withdrew a stump. And Fenrir swallowed, and the last meal that Tyr would ever hand his old friend was his own hand. And before they rammed a sword in his mouth and threw him in a pit, the last thing Fenris said was, "I don't know why you've done this to me, but you are fools. If you had let me be, I'd have been a friend to the Aesir till and through Ragnarok. And I don't know how, but one day I will be free. And I know who to blame. And it is not my injured friend. It is Warden, King of the Gods. And that is who I will hold responsible for the day that I am free. And that is who I will kill." And so the gods, Aesir, Valnir, and Jotun alike, wait for the day that Loki will break his own prison, which is another story entirely. And Hela, his daughter, will sail forth on Naglfar, a ship made from the fingernails and toenails of the dead men who are stored in its hull to unleash upon Asgard and Jormungand. Like I said, it can't always be grim. Sometimes it has to be funny. Will stop fighting his own ass and come after Thor himself. The great wrecking will come with the Fimbulvetter, the winter that will end all winters and yet reign in icy despotism forever. But perhaps it need not be so. As I told you, this is the story of a family, and that family wishes to be understood. Loki and Angerboda begot Jormungandr, Fenrir, and Hela. At some point in the wanderings, Fenrir had a lover. And of that lover, he begat a child. A runt, Fenrir's only son, arguably one he was ashamed of, banished to Midgard to live as the first direwolf and die, to be reborn as a direwolf again and die, and then born as a wolf when the direwolf gave away and die, and eventually be transferred to the body of a man and die and be born and die and be born and die. And finally, that man, who has never had a name beyond Fenrir's own title, Fenris, the Fenris Ulfr, the title of Fenrir himself, bequeathed to his son, born to live and die, choose the nickname Fen and tell his father's true story. The story that tells the other side of the Aesir's unjust fate born in prison of his father. For of enough understanding before this final death, before I return to Jarnvidar to side with my father in whatever decision he makes. If man chooses the right course, we may yet avoid dark